let's get into it. So, starting off with the Infernus Marines. Again, starting off with a basic troop, nothing particularly crazy. They're not painted to a massive amount of detail, but there's enough on there that they still look fantastic. And starting with the Sergeant, you can see the highlights are a bit fully enough, this isn't contrast painted. It has been Nuln oiled to within an inch of its life. I used to play back in 4th edition, and one of the things with 4th is you had like regal blue, so you could paint your Ultramarines in Ultramarines blue, which was a lighter blue that you might be more accustomed to. But regal blue used to be the base for the armor, so they had a much more darker, grittier blue to them, and that is kind of where I like them to be. So yeah, starting with the Sergeant, obviously helmet off to one side. If they don't have a helmet on, I like to paint a helmet across. Again, not the best work. This was when Space Marine 2 kicked off. I came back into the fold, and these are some of the Marines that I started painting up. This is my Reiver Sergeant, which was painted before I got into some of my Christmas acting projects, so far too busy then, but we've gone from Nuln Oil to Dakarov Nightshade, which just gives you a bit of a richer blue. But again, if I compare the two with the previous Sergeant, the colour's not massively different between them, but you can see that there is a bit of shading difference. There is a bit more depth, I think, to the Reiver. The blue on that is a bit nicer, but it's also got larger panels. Again, we're gone with 4th Company. Uriel Ventris was one of my favourite characters growing up. I like to read a lot of his books. Graham McNeil, absolutely awesome author, and hence why my characters got green shoulder pads. Although, when I came back in originally, these guys were the same golden shoulder pad that you might come to expect with a certain Demetrian Titus. Now, this is my Titus model. I have a few little bits from the Battlefield Trophy set to give him a Rubric Marine, a Dusty Boy to absolutely tromp on. And yeah, he's an awesome miniature to paint, actually. Surprisingly, lots of detail, especially with the battle damage to his armour. And this was still relatively early on. I remember this coming out around Christmas, so it's about a year old. And I'd only been painting for about 3 months. You'll see some of the miniatures that I painted early on, including the Infernus Marines. And yeah, I learned quite a lot through that. And this is still sort of old school painting, so no contrasts, no shades on his shoulder pads. That is old school building up colours. Same with his chest piece. And the matte varnish takes away some of that glossiness that you get from metallics. I don't particularly like the glossiness. I kind of prefer my metallics to be a bit more dulled down. Again, we're living in the grimdark future, so I like it to be grimdark. This is my 4th Company Lieutenant, and you may not notice at first, but any of you that have gone into a Warhammer store, they can give you like a free miniature, just an Infernus boy, a little bit similar to, let me see, to this guy. He's not the free one, but they have a nice base to them. They're in a fairly neutral stance, and they have a flamer buttoned on just there to the buckle. So it's stuck on, it's a single pose piece, and what I did is I took that piece and I thought I'd convert it into something a bit more special. So I have old school Sergeant's helmet. So this guy is a firstborn. Again, we've got like the old banners, because they stopped doing banners, and I think that's such a shame. But yeah, you've got like little gribbly Tyrannid bits on here. The only weird thing is the transition between the rock to the 40mm base. Because he's a lieutenant, you have to rebase him. But I highly recommend it. If you go into your local Warhammer store, say hi, ask him if you can get a free model, and make something unique out of it. Because that is my 4th Company Lieutenant. But I also have, and you'll see the base is just the same, some Tyrannid gribbliness there. And this is a Victrix Guard, using the extra kit available from the Victrix set. So you can make a really cool standout Marine from this basic free miniature. And funnily enough, this section here is from the Saturn IX Praetor. And I do believe that is the original buckle for the Saturn IX Praetor too. So if I bring it a bit closer, it doesn't quite fit. I've had to trim quite a lot of it down. But by the time it's painted and finished, you won't see the difference. Again, the cape hides a lot of the details at the back of it. Not that there's really much to add in there. But if you see, there are extra pouches at the back. That's the original one. The Auspex and the pistol pouch are additionals. But yeah, really, really cool ideas that you can do with these miniatures. I think they're some of the most fun that you can get really creative with. If you want a little tip, when you cut off or when you clip the pin for the buckle that has the flamer attached to it, reverse it round so you don't have the clip side and just press it back in. If you need to, you can just cut around a little bit of the edge just to give it a rounder edge. But I think I just managed to I just painted it, added on like a sharper crease to it, and it blends in just fine. But yeah, again, this is also Dakharoth Nightshade. I think that's the name of the colour. And you just see the blue is just so beautiful. It just comes out really rich without going too light. And this is, I do believe, yep, that has been washed, but it's not particularly crazy on that. So by the time it's all highlighted, it'll come out a bit nicer. But yeah, awesome miniatures. So these are the captains of the Ultramarines. As you can see, a few of them haven't been painted. Unfortunately, whilst I've been doing some of my acting contracts, we've had a lot of Ultramarines releases. So actually organising, not getting these models, that's not been too difficult, but actually collecting them has been difficult because I've not been free. So we're going to start off with, obviously, Captain Agemman, captain of the First Company. And this is one of the early miniatures that I painted. So again, you can see lots of null oil. We'll give his little dusty top there a quick little brush off, along with his base. He's a nice sturdy miniature. I was very proud of his cape. That came out really, really nicely. So it's full of holes, it looks ornate, and yeah, it's a really cool miniature. Especially squishing that Tyranid head, as you can see there. Let's see how close we can get in on the eyes. This is very early on in me doing eyes. Again, I'd picked up this hobby after about 15 years. So I used to play it as a kid, and then came back, and I thought my painting skills would have diluted quite a lot, and they hadn't really. So yeah, the eyes are, well, they're not outlined. I think that causes the most issue that I have with them. There's no contrast between the whites and the flesh of the face. So we're going to move on in company order. And I think we'll go to Sicarius of the Victrix Guard. Now, a lot of people have problems building this miniature. I fully understand. The headpiece there was a bit annoying. What I've done for painting purposes is I've not glued them all in yet. So there are elements where I can still go back, take some pieces off. And you'll see the difference here between Ultramarines blue from the rattle can and Ultramarines blue with the Dakharoth Nightshade on it. It leaves a really nice tint, but it also changes the colour quite drastically. Now, this piece, if you build it separately, you are able to take it off and place it back in. I'm not going to say it's the easiest job to do, but it does mean that you have access to the side of his body, so you can paint little details down there that are still visible, and it means you can get a lot of detail into his helmet, because I think his helmet is really, really important to, well, how he carries himself. It's a shame that they didn't give you a helmet that you could have free and have the plasma pistol like the old miniature. I have the old miniature upstairs. It is a little bit of a pain to clip back in, but once it's in, you can see it's nice, tight and secure. And once it's all painted and glued, it'll be pressed in and then maybe a bit of green stuff applied. Yeah, he's a pretty cool model. I'm quite happy with him. We're going to go on to Captain Ventris. This was for a while one of my better painted miniatures. I do believe that I've gone a little bit further than where we're at now. But if you look at his face, his eyes are significantly better. I also like doing like the little bit of stubble, but yeah, he's giving like a bit of side eye. Also, the gemstones in this are some of the favourite that I've painted. The nice big gemstone on the sword of Aidius there. That really does stand out. And they're gloss varnished as well. One of the things that I do with my gemstones or anything that should be particularly shiny is I like to put a nice gloss varnish on it because I think that just really, really pops it off. So you'll find little bits like these details are not built into the plastic. They are just painted in. But I wanted it to look like it's seen a little bit of wear and tear. Because if you read anything of Uriel Ventris in the books, he tends to get his arse kicked quite a bit. So he's always battle scarred and damaged. And his bolter as well. What I do really, really like, I don't think I have any bolt rifles with me down here because none of my intercessors are actually fully painted. But it is an old school bolter. And it does more damage than a normal bolt rifle. Which makes you think, why can't we have bolt rifles? Oh, we have a bolt rifle just there. Aha. Thank you, Captain Centos. So you can see the size difference between the two of them. Like, significantly shorter. And yet, they can make the rules for bolters so that they're equal to bolt rifles. But they don't. Your tactical marines are screwed over. Although saying that, infiltrators don't particularly have great bolters either. Next, we're going to move on to Captain Ferren Aerios. Now, I'm quite proud. These eyes I worked very, very hard on. Obviously, you've got quite a bit of contrast between the white of his eyes and his dark tan skin as well. So, yeah, there's obviously going to be a nice little pop-off there. But yeah, I'm really happy. He's got a nice focus. You can clearly tell he's looking where he's pointing. Again, bit of work needed to be done on this model. He's not quite yet done. He's also not varnished. As you can see down there, there is like little rubbing marks, but it's very easy to fill that back in. But yeah, this is him so far. I'm also very proud of the handle to his thunder hammer. That was actually painted orange and contrasted in Blood Angels red. And a little slip up just there. So a lot of detail still to be done on this miniature and a little bit of tidying up. Some of the highlights on that are a bit too thick. I'm highlighting with rust grey on these, by the way. If anyone wants to know, I used to, looking back at my older miniatures, highlight with Thunderhawk grey. And the problem with that is it doesn't stand out as much. It doesn't pop as much. And the colour is slightly more muted than the Ultramarines blue with the Dakarov Nightshade, so it doesn't stand out quite as well. So yeah, that's all changed. I've now started using a brighter, slightly more vibrant blue. I think that looks really good. So that's the Captain of the 6th. Now let's get on to the Captain of the 3rd company, I do believe. 3rd is red. 5th is black, yes. So this is Captain Centos. As you can see, he is unpainted. His helmet does remove, although I won't try and do it here because the Dakarov Nightshade has embedded itself in there and almost glued it in place. So it takes a little bit of wiggling to get it out. And I'm not quite ready to do that just yet. But yeah, nice tactical rock that he stood on. Again, going back to banners, thank goodness. We're adding character back into our Space Marines. There's nice detailing on the cape as well, which I wish that more sculpts did. And his power fist is obviously going to be the hazard stripes. His weapon's going to be red. He's going to look like an old school Ultramarine. He's going to look fantastic. And what I really like is, before this model came out, I made my Ultramarine Lieutenant. And you can see the similarities are maybe not overly striking. I mean, I have got limitations, like his chest plate is a very modern chest plate. Doesn't have the exposed wiring. But there is some nice similarities with like the helmet, the banner. Even the banner's so similar. Yeah, it's nice to see them go almost backwards in time and give us that proper Space Marine look. I did forget about Decimus Felix. Now, Decimus Felix, if any of you have read the Dark Imperium series or any of the books with Colin, he shows up as one of the prominent characters. He is the captain of the 11th Company, and some people might go, well, Space Marines have only got 10 companies. Well, the Ultramarines have a secret 11th Company, and he is basically the Tetrarch of Vespertor. So when you're seeing the new 500 Worlds series with Titus, and Titus is on the Vespertor front, really, it should be his responsibility. He doesn't have a full battle company. What he does is he takes assets from the various successor chapters from across Ultramar, or from his tetrarchy, and he has created his own honor guard as well. So he's got about I think it's like a 20-man squad of honor guard. Pretty cool. I've got him fighting in the Plague Wars, so he's against like some nasty piece of stinky boy Nurgle. But yeah, really nice model and a pretty interesting captain. In the latest book of Archmagos, if you like, it does seem like he's going for gold pauldrons. In the earlier Dark Imperium books, he's just got blue pauldrons. So I have kept it with blue. So we got the chapter Librarius. Now, I took quite a bit of time over the captains, so I'll try and be a little bit quicker here. But again, one of my early miniatures, you've got, I can't remember what the name of the contrast paint is, but it's one of the lighter blues. I use it a lot for plasma. I've used it a lot for here because you just have this nice little glow effect on everything. But yeah, you can see he's chiming up his psychic powers, ready to strike. I've not done anything with these purity seals. They need like a little bit of scripture on there and a bit of brightening up as well. They're a bit too dark. Yeah, lots of like little bits with the transfers. I noticed in all of the years since I've been painting Warhammer that transfers these days are looking a lot better. Now, you will see we have some brighter highlights. Again, this is one of my earlier miniatures, but I did have a dry pot of, I don't think it's called ice blue, but it's something similar to that. It was a really useful colour that just gave me a bit more of a brighter finish, because as you can see, the Thunderhawk blue is a bit, it's a bit muted. It doesn't stand out. Not so bad, because Ultramarine Librarians should be a slightly darker blue than a richer blue. I did just kind of paint him Ultramarines blue. I didn't really care too much. Now, we have got Tigurius, and Tigurius here is an absolute legend. I loved his old miniature. I never bought it, even though I had plenty of occasions to, and I regretted it because I really, really wanted his miniature. So when I had the opportunity, I got the new plastic one, and yeah, look at that. Friggin' awesome miniature. I think I've gone a bit too excessive with the eyes. They're a bit too, well, his eyes look like they're 4 times the size of what they should be. But it shows he's a powerful psyker and he's just channeling that energy. There's little elements that I've kind of forgotten about, like that wiring should be a different colour just to stand out a bit more. I did notice, even with the varnish on, his gloves were flaking paint away. So it's had lots of layers of varnish on there. But yeah, lots of details with him. He's a really, really cool character. I've also done 2 different tones of cream for the cape and the tabard, or the robe, or the inner robe. So you'll see they are slightly different colours. One's more tan, one's more bright and creamy. So yeah, really, really cool miniature. So now we go on to the chapter master of the Ultramarines, and that is of course Marneus Calgar. I had no interest in making this model. In fact, it was only until Space Marine 2 and how awesome his, spoiler alert, his entrance is, that I went, oh, go on then. Yeah, I found him at my local independent game store, and yeah, I just had to get him. You'll notice looking at his armour as well, I've done a bit of battle damage, but I've kept most of the battle damage to his power fists. So the gauntlets of Ultramar, they look like they've been absolutely battered because they're supposed to be an ancient relic. The only thing I don't really like in his model's design is his power pack. Like, The eagle heads, that's classic. From the back, it doesn't look too bad. From the front, why has it got vents up the top when it's got vents down the side there? I guess they'll just say it's additional cooling, but it just seems a little bit silly and over the top, and it makes the model look a little bit too, I don't know, too bulky, too top heavy. It's kind of lost some of its humanity is a weird way to put it, but if it makes sense in terms of he doesn't look like as much of a human figure. You'll notice on this as well, the gold is all just contrast painted. So it's Retributor armor, contrast painted with Dakarov flesh. If you want the recipe for it, it gives it a much more ancient sort of worn gold. None of this is highlighted. It's just been left pretty much to its own devices, and it looks okay, especially from a distance. I think it looks fine. I prefer having the warmer red tone golds and the brighter golds. If you look at his chest piece, that has had some highlights on it. So there are elements where I haven't been too lazy. But yeah, for the most part, I've just sort of left it to it. This mold has also been varnished, so it's got a bit more of a matte finish to it, which I also prefer. If you're doing any of the contrast paints on top of a metallic, you'll find that they very quickly matte down anyway. But yeah, you always want to put some form of varnish on just to ensure that the paints are well protected, because it's only thin coats with contrast. So yeah, you can see with the shield that has been highlighted and has come out really nicely. The helmet has not, which I think it's still okay. It still has, where the contrast has been less thickly applied to the edges, it still has a nice natural highlight to it. And one of my favourite bits of this is when the cape's done. These capes, by the way, if you're picking up the older miniature, I say older, he's not an old miniature, but if you're picking up the older set, the capes are a nightmare. I suggest you get some green stuff whilst you're picking it up if you don't have some already, because they do need it. And lastly, the last of the Victrix Guard. Any of you that have picked up the new set of Victrix Guard, including myself, then they changed the rules from 4 wounds. They changed the rules from 4 wounds to 3 wounds, and I think it makes more sense. It's more in line with, you know, these guys, although technically if you gave them 4, I don't think that'd be a bad idea because they've got the shield, but they have the invulnerable save. Again, cape looking really nice. There is different brightness levels between these two capes. This just got a little bit less detail to it, a little bit less movement on it. And so when you see them at the back, you'll see my cape design tends to be quite a deep, rich red. I think my favourite cape that I have ever done is still Captain Agemman. So I put Captain Agemman there. That cape takes a lot more time. You can see the results of it. It's a much deeper, richer cape. Some other cape highlights, because who doesn't love capes? Tigurius. We have Decimus Felix. And it's not a red cape, because he's captain of the 4th company, and for some reason he likes green. So, yeah, that is a little assembling of capes. So, next, let's move on to Roboute Guilliman himself. Now, this miniature, I kid you not, took me, I'm going to say somewhere around the lines of 25 to 30 hours to paint. Now, again, there's people that can spend a lot less time and pick out more highlights and do a better job. However, all of the trim on here was painted from a base of Balthasar gold and brought up to Liberator gold. So it's quite a lot of work and highlights. And I don't even think I washed these. I think these are literally all built up from the base. This was the first miniature I painted when I came back to it. I think I did this before I did the Infernus Marines. And in some respects, it was nice because the detail of him is fantastic. Like, I had these pieces, these front, of his, not pauldrons, whatever you call that lower state of armor. They didn't have to be attached, so I had them detached, and several elements of this were not glued as I was painting it, so I could get as much detail as is physically possible. Now, the Emperor's Sword, I had an old shade bottle of, I think it's called Ball Red. And the more you add this shade, the more it gets into this smoky black. Funnily enough, the sword all started as yellow. The entire sword. I didn't add any oranges. I didn't add any reds. This was all just adding this shade in until eventually you had that smooth transition. So it was really, really nice. There's a lot of details that I can still pick out on this that still need additional work, and it's going to be the case with this model. He's so complex. The trim is a nightmare to paint. If you want advice to paint it, I painted all the blue, didn't highlight it. I washed it with Nuln Oil, and then I did all the gold trim, and going back over the blue wherever I made any mistakes. And that kept the trim relatively tight. The base was originally all grey, as in I liked having bases a little bit similar to, trying to spoil what's coming, to that. And then I moved on to the sandy bases because I finally found the correct colour for the rims. There is no correct colour, but it's Steel Legion drab, and that's what they use for the heavy metal team, and that's my preferred style. But yeah, with his face, with his eyes, if you can see, I did manage to get two tones with them, so it's blue eyes with his black pupils. Again, I don't know how well that will show on here, but it is a very cool finish. Highlights before we move on to the armory. We've got the new banner of Macragge, which just does not fit into that screen. I'd have to move the camera back, but you can see the old banner there. Just what a difference in size. About the same width. Weight-wise, this is metal. This is not the more recent fine cast. So yeah, this is old school. But yeah, just a significant step up in models. And I did end up getting the new Marneus Calgar. I didn't think I wanted to, but it is such a nice miniature, and he's got a nicer balance to him. I think the way that I'm going to do it, if I'm playing it in games, is this guy is going to be semi-retired. He's going to be the main guy, and if I want to run him as the Gravis version with his two Victrix Guard, congratulations. Here is my Marneus Calgar in Terminator armor with two Victrix Guards. You know the second that you see those two that he is the 200 point option, or whatever the more expensive Gravis version is, because he's two little extra characters. He won't get his deep strike, but who cares? He just looks better. Also, if you want a comparison of the two, which I think would be quite a nice idea, he does stand a little bit taller because he's obviously standing on a big tactical rock. He is way more imposing compared to his regular Space Marine counterparts, and he's already a tall miniature in Gravis armor. So if I compare him to, where's my Reiver captain? There's my Reiver captain, and as you can see, just no competition who takes up the most space and stands out on a board. They do a very good job of that, to be fair. I think with Games Workshop and anything that's working with Space Marines, making a Space Marine stand out in a Space Marine heavy army is just a pain. So all the extra capes, they all work. I mean, look at that difference in height there. He, dare I say it, almost looks like a Primarch. I mean, that is literally, I mean, it's not quite the same stance, but at that angle, he's about half a head higher. In fact, you tell me, I think that might even be a full head higher, again, given that angle. yeah, that's crazy. And also, shout out to the big mold line. Yeah, I'll fix that in post. Now here we are moving on to the armory of the Space Marines, and this is my Predator. Old school style with the mudded sides. This side is quite old and it's had to be glued because it's lost its function to go up and down. As much as I try, it can be very difficult to keep these things in perfect condition over such long periods of time. That one, however, still working, still functioning, still looking good. Probably should paint the insides of those silver, but I don't know how much longer this model is going to get rules for before it gets hit with legends. I hope they don't. There's certain elements that I kind of wish that they don't take away, even though the miniature itself is a bit, yes, we've got things like the Gladiator that have come out that are larger, more imposing tanks, that you've got your grav technology and things like that, just to make them look a bit better. Yeah, they're better looking, I think, but the Predator is an icon, and I think it'd be a shame to get rid of it in the same way that getting rid of a Land Raider would be a bad idea. I have 3 Land Raiders, one of each variety, the Redeemer, the Crusader, and the regular Land Raider. The Redeemer is with my Blood Angels, because my Blood Angels are going to go punch people in the face, and nothing beats punching someone in the face when they're set on fire. So that's kind of the idea with the Blood Angels. But I still have the Crusader for any like assault squads. So yeah, these two, pretty cool. I'll get more into detail about this now, actually. So the Gladiator kit itself is a really, really cool kit. So turret, entirely removable. Do not, if you can help it, glue the base in. It's friction fit. And then you can replace this with parts from the various options that you get. So you can have either of these. You lock that back in place, and your Gladiator Lancer can become I don't remember the name of it, Valiant or something silly like that. The only thing that I don't like is these bases are a pain. They work fine, but I mean, you have to have them seated correctly. So even these pieces, there's like a little friction fit piece. If you need to, if you want to add some extra grippiness to it, you can add a tiny bit of Citadel's plastic glue because it's thick, a tiny little drop to the side, let it dry fully, so give it lots of hours to actually dry, and you can basically friction fit on different pieces without having to do magnets. Everyone's doing bloody magnets. You don't need magnets. There's much better alternatives these days. And going back to old school techniques of I don't need to cut up my tank, I can simply replace on a part the old school way. So yeah, very versatile kit. Again, this is the Gladiator, but if you want to, you can also remove pieces, and very quickly it becomes an Impulsor. I wouldn't worry too much about these bolters. I do have the other sponsons, so you can have the original Stormbolter style rather than the, I can't remember what they call those ones, but there is a different name for it. Again, you've got the full Impulsor kit with the Gladiator kit. It's not a secret. But you also have things like this little section that can fit on. And with things like this, you can have it either as your twin heavy stubber, which I don't entirely know why anyone would do that. I don't think it's the most versatile option, and with fixed points in 10th, it seems a bit silly. So I have here, I've got the missile variant, but again, I can switch it out as I need to. If you think, I want to have an invulnerable save, then you can equip it with your very own, well, there's a shield dome, but it doesn't actually fit there like that. There's another little piece that goes on the base of it that it sticks to. I've just not got that piece with me at this very second. But yeah, it's a nice versatile kit. You have a nice interior section that you can paint as well, which I highly recommend doing. I've seen people like leave bolt rifles on the floor and stuff like that. That's cool. But yeah, go crazy with it. Make it your own. Now we get onto the bigger kits. So this is the Repulsor. It's quite a large tank. Again, I hate the bases of these things, but if we put him here, I will put, for comparison's sake, a Predator, which obviously built on the Rhino chassis. Rhino chassis is tiny in comparison to the Repulsor. And even the Impulsor chassis with the Gladiator, I mean, the difference is, it's still quite drastic. I don't think that angle shows it off that well, but you get an idea the size difference there. The turrets are two different turrets. Looking at them originally, they look like they might be the same pieces with interchangeable sections. They're not at all. Yeah, they are quite different. There's lots of little moving components on this. So obviously all of this moves. You can have that move, that'll move. So don't glue these things in place. Sort of as much as you can possibly get away with, just friction fitting. Just so that way you can play around. We've got some of the Ultramarines upgrade pack stuff here as well. So if you look towards the side there, we've got some of the Ultramarines symbols. Same again with here. We have a piece that's just fallen off, which is fairly standard because, again, I don't glue them on. You can change that with a stubber. We have little bits that haven't been painted, like the skull there that should be scribing. Again, we've got chapter company symbols with the green stripes. So this is Uriel Ventris's personal, what's the name of it now? Jesus, Repulsor. There we go. He also has a Land Raider. So if you read, is it Courage and Honor? Whatever the latest one is, Swords of Calf. Swords of Calf, he has a Land Raider in that, but that's sort of the early transition to primary stuff. So things will keep changing. But yeah, really nice. Not painted up the Tech Marine fully yet, but for now, it's painted to a standard where I'm quite happy with it. And I also have it so that I can lift off the top as well, because I do like painting, and in here there is weapons option and a dreadnought piece. Don't worry about that so much, it's just a place to store it. We have the big Gatling cannon, I can't remember the name of it right now, Onslaught Gatling cannon, something like that, and a little stone bolter. Not that it matters in this edition, because you can have 20 shots with the defensive array system, whatever they call it. But yeah, this interior needs painting, so that's why it's not been done. All the doors pop out, even the side doors. So they're all interchangeable. If ever an upgrade kit comes in where you can have really, really, really cool doors, I can swap them about as I need. So don't feel like you have to glue everything down. Everything has to be static. I'm very much so pro posing and playing about with it. I mean, look, the fit goes on relatively nice. If I glued it down, it would be a flush fit, but it's not far off. And certainly when you're on a battle board, no one's picking it apart. Now we move on to the Stormraven. So, interesting story about this. This was originally painted as a Blood Angel Stormraven. It wasn't fully painted, it was just base coded like half of my armies are. But after Space Marine 2, I decided to go paint this up in Ultramarines colours. I did like some of the Thunderhawk styled squad markings there. I didn't have an Ultramarines vehicle transfer sheet, or a vehicle transfer sheet, because they'll have Ultramarine symbols early on. So it has all the small ones, and actually I kind of prefer it. I don't think it needs huge symbols. You can tell exactly whose chapter it is. It's a bright blue flying death thing. Slash flying brick. I have the base. This was originally painted for my Valkyrie. I think it was a Vulture gunship at the time. So it's got old school style, gritted, rocked up, you know, everything's like PVA sand and stuff on it. So it's held up really, really well. That base is approximately 15 years old, older than that even. Yeah, it's done pretty well for a very large base. Now, going into some of the details of this, again, we have elements that were not contrast painted because this was painted very early on as well, before I decided to go buy a load of new miniatures. This is interchangeable. You can take it off. Again, never glue your miniatures if you can help it, because you might want to change things up. You might want to repaint things. Again, Ultramarines there. The Servitor is not glued in, but getting this off is a pain. I might have even glued it, actually. It doesn't appear to be coming off. Oh, it is. It does come off. There we go. So it can be repainted in the future, should I need it. The details of this were actually a pain to paint, to be honest with you. There's a lot there to really dig out, and my techniques were different to what they are now. I think it'd be a lot easier to paint now. The hook, the clamp for a Dreadnought, which was originally designed for like the Blood Angels box dread. Obviously times have changed, and yet it can still carry a Dreadnought that is easily the same height as it. I don't know how they work that out, but it's 40k. Let's not think about it too much. This has not been varnished, so every time I take off this top section, it tends to do like a little scrape there. I mean, that is hidden by the piece itself when it's on, but really this all needs properly varnishing up. There's little strokes of battle damage to it. Again, I hadn't figured out how I wanted to do the heat treating to the steel. So obviously with steel, when it gets hot, darkens up. None of these barrels are drilled, but I do have little interior details in there. The seats haven't been highlighted. There's no real special treatment, but doors open up. I thought that one was clamped on at the bottom, but apparently not. But yeah, everything's painted. The front hinge still works fine. So it's a really cool bit of kit. If you ever get the chance to paint one before they potentially get removed, then I recommend it. There's so much detail in there. You can see this is just very scrappily painted. You can see Tallyman's leg there. Hello, Tally. So yeah, that is all for now from the Ultramarines. We are going to move on from the Ultramarines into the Blood Angels for the next episode, and we might have a bonus for the Tau, because there's not a great deal of painted Tau there. Hopefully you have really enjoyed watching all of these miniatures get put together, and seeing the different painting techniques that have got into them, and just the variety that you can get even with Ultramarines. But yes, please leave a like and subscribe. If you can, leave a comment with any models that you might want me to paint, or models that I might have that I will be painting in the near future anyway. And yes, I hope you've really enjoyed it. Thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.